I was at a dinner party with some friends a few years back. Good people, good wine. And somehow I ended up spending 40 minutes explaining why a particular situation in my life was absolutely, categorically, 100% not my fault. 40 minutes. I had the receipts, I had a timeline supporting evidence, and I was basically presenting a cold case to people who'd come out for a nice meal on a Friday night. And at some point, I looked around the table and I saw it. My friends had stopped nodding and had that very particular look that says, we love you, we believe you, and we are absolutely begging you to change the subject. And that was the moment I realized I'd moved from having a hard time to performing a hard time. If that hit a nerve, stay with me. Hey, I'm Hilary Saxton, and this is the Bounce Back Better podcast, the podcast for people who are done with excuses, done with waiting, and ready to take back control of their life. Let's get into it. Okay, I want to start today with a conversation a few years back. I was at dinner with people, with friends who are cool people, and we're at one of those restaurants where they bring out the bread first, and then you eat half the loaf before you realize you've even looked at the menu. Anyway, good people, good wine, the kind of night that should have been easy and fun. And somehow, I genuinely cannot tell you how it started. I ended up spending 40 minutes explaining why a particular situation in my life was absolutely, categorically, and 100% not my fault. 40 minutes. I had the receipts, I had the timeline, I had the context, I had the backstory. And what I can only describe, I also had witness statements. Well, it felt like I did. I was basically presenting a cold case to people who'd come out for a nice meal on a Friday night. And here's the thing. I was right. The situation was unfair. The other person had behaved badly. I had been genuinely blindsided, and I was still hurting. I was still hurting from it. But at some point across the entrees, I looked around the table and I saw it. My friends had stopped nodding. No one was asking follow-up questions. They had that very particular look. You know the one that says, we love you, we believe you, and we are absolutely begging you to change the subject. One of them had started reading the specials board she'd already ordered. And that was the moment something shifted in me. Not embarrassment exactly, more like a clear recognition that I had moved from having a hard time to performing a hard time. And there is a difference. And most of us know somewhere underneath the story when we've crossed that line. That's exactly what we're talking about today. Now, before anyone gets defensive, let me be clear. I'm not talking about people who've been genuinely harmed, traumatized, betrayed, or hit sideways by life. Some people have had a really tough time and they should never have to go through things. This is not me minimizing pain. This is me talking about what happens next. What happens when the hard thing becomes your whole personality, when the disappointment becomes your default setting, when the powerlessness becomes the story you keep polishing, repeating, and presenting like a legal case no one asked to hear. Because there is a difference between having a hard season and setting up permanent residence there. And if we're honest, some people do not want situations. They want witnesses. They want a panel of judges to nod along while they explain why their life has been particularly unfair, uniquely difficult, and tragically unsupported. You know the type. Maybe it's even someone else. Maybe it's you. Or maybe lately you've been saying things like, why does this always happen to me? No one helps me. Nothing ever works out. And I can't because I would, but you don't understand how hard it is for me. And look, sometimes it is hard, and sometimes people have let you down, and sometimes life has absolutely whacked you. But the question is not whether it's been hard. The question is whether you've been quietly building an identity around that life, around that one life that keeps happening to you. Because once that happens, you stop moving, you stay in the story. And here's what most people get wrong about victim mindset. It does not always look dramatic. It doesn't always look like someone fainting onto a chaise lounge with the back of their hand across their head. No, most of us don't even have a chaise lounge. And quite frankly, if you did, you'd probably say someone else always gets to use it first. No, victim mindset. Victim mindset looks normal, respectable. It even looks like a tired mum who keeps saying she never gets a minute to herself, but never clearly asks for help or sets up a boundary and has quietly made martyrdom her whole brand. She's not complaining. She's just letting you know every day to everyone with the energy of someone filing a formal grievance. It looks like a woman maybe in the workplace who keeps saying she's overlooked, undervalued, and underpaid, which may be true, but has she ever had the conversation? Never backs herself? Does she always have an old CV? Has she never looked for another job? The thing is, the injustice is probably real. The inaction is the choice. It looks like a small business owner who blames the algorithm, the economy, the season, the weather, and possibly the alignment of the stars and the planets, but still hasn't followed up leads or set up that database or using their email system to weekly contact people, even if there's just a few people on it, because they're busy and they've got the best reasons in the world. It can also look like a property developer who says the market's too hard and finance is impossible and council takes too long and builders are hopeless and we've got an oil crisis and nothing stacks up anymore. Let me park it there for a minute because I know a lot of you are in this world. Some of what I'm saying is true. The market is genuinely hard. Finance has tightened. Councils have slowed. Builders are expensive and stretched. But here's also what I know. People are still finding sites. People are still getting finance approved. People are still getting projects through. And when you look closely at those people are the ones who are moving, the ones who are actually building right now. They're not people who got easy conditions. They're people who stopped having the same conversation about the conditions and started asking different questions, the market being hard as information. For some people, that information makes them sharper, more creative, more resourceful. For others, it becomes their favorite hiding place. Ooh, pokey, their favorite hiding place. And you can tell which one someone is by the way they're talking. Are they making offers, following up, improving their numbers, asking better questions, testing angles, or are they collecting reasons it's hard and arranging them into a very neat, very convincing display cabinet? One builds, one blames. Now I want to talk about the payoffs. This is the part nobody likes, but it's important. If victim mindset is so limiting, why do smart, capable people stay in it? Because it pays off. Not necessarily financially, not in any way you'd put on a vision board, but it pays. If nothing is your fault, nothing is your responsibility. If the story is about what they did or what they didn't do, how unsupported you are, how overlooked you are, how impossible it is, then you'll never have to fully sit down with the most uncomfortable question of all, which is, what is still mine to do? That question is terrifying to a victim. Ooh. And it's more terrifying to their mindset because once you ask it, you can't unknow the answer. Victim mindset loves why me. Growth asks, now what? Victim mindset says, I can't. Growth says, I haven't worked out how yet. The shift matters because one keeps you stuck and the other gives you your power back. And here's the other part that doesn't get talked about. Well, doesn't get talked about enough. Victim mindset does not just affect you. It affects every person around you. Your kids hear it. Your partner feels it. Your team absorbs it. Your clients sense it. And your friends, eventually, they stop feeling compassionate and start feeling tired. Not because they don't care, because they realize something you don't. You don't want support. You just want agreement. You don't want help moving forward. You want people to confirm that, yes, life has been especially unfair to you and you are absolutely justified in staying exactly where you are. That gets exhausting for everyone. Think about what it actually feels like to be the kid in that house where mum's always exhausted, always overwhelmed, always carrying more than anyone else. And she needs you to know it. not because she's asking for help, because the weight of it has become part of who she is. Kids in that environment do one of two things. They either spend the next 20 years trying to take up less space, so they are not another thing in the room or the thing on mum's list, or they grow up thinking that adulthood is just one big complaint with snacks, and they repeat the whole pattern. Neither is what you want for them. Neither. And the tricky thing is that the mum in that scenario would say she does everything for her kids. She would mean it. But what she's modeling every single day is that the world is something that happens to you, that you cope, that you carry, that you endure, when what you actually want is to model you decide, you ask, you move. It's the same in business as well. I've seen this in teams. I've seen it in leaders. When the person at the top is in victim mode, when everything is the economy's fault, the staff's fault, the marketer's fault, the client's fault, the team absorbs that, not because they're weak, because their culture flows from the top. Always, a leader in victim mode doesn't inspire people. They don't inspire people to set up. It teaches everyone around them to look sideways and wait for someone else to fix it. And then the leader is furious that no one takes ownership. Do you see the irony here? You can't model helplessness and then wonder why no one around you is helping. So what do you actually do about this? You ask a better question. Not why me, not who failed me, not who should have done more. You ask, what is still mine to do? I'm saying it again. What is still mine to do? If the marriage is hard, what is still mine to do? If the business is slow, what is still mine to do? If the workplace is draining me, what is still mine to do? If I'm exhausted, what is still mine to do? If the market is tough, what is still mine to do? That question changes everything. Now, let me make it real for you. Say you're a property developer. I know there's a few of you listening, so it's a great one to put in there. Say you're a property developer. The market is hard, so you haven't found a deal in months. And every conversation you have seems to confirm that now is not the time. What is still mine to do? Maybe it's getting your finance pre-approved, so you're ready to move fast when something does come up. Maybe it's spending a month doing nothing but understanding one specific suburb. You know what I'm talking about. Perfecting your patch information so well that you can spot an opportunity before anyone else does. And I tell you now, most people in our programs, that's where they get to. Maybe it's having an honest conversation with your broker about what your actual borrowing capacity looks like. So there's so much that you can do. It's picking up the phone to someone who's actively doing something and seeing what they're saying. So none of that requires a market to change. It all requires you to stop waiting for conditions to improve. And I'm just using property development here, but you use this in your small business. You use this at home. You use this everywhere. You just need to look around and think, what is it? What is in your control? That's what the question does. It pulls you out of the commentary. It puts you back in the driver's seat. And hey, don't I always talk about being in the driver's seat, getting back on that road and heading towards your destination? Because basically, when you get in victim mode, you've pulled into the car park. That's become the excuse that you're living with, that you're using. Get out of the car park. Just take those actions. Same for the mum who never gets time for herself. What's still mine to do? Not what should everyone else be doing and what they should be doing differently. What is mine? Maybe it's telling her partner clearly, not hinting, not sighing loudly at 10 p.m., you know who you are, exactly what she needs. Maybe it's deciding that Saturday morning is hers and actually protecting it instead of filling it with everyone else's stuff. Maybe it's admitting that some of the busyness is self-created because being needed feels safer than being honest. And it's safer than being honest about what she wants. One question, completely different direction. See that? That's just that one question and you're in a new direction. Because here's what it's not saying. It's not saying pretend it didn't hurt. It's not saying it was unfair. It's not saying do it all alone, skip the rest, or slap a quote over a sunrise and call it healed. It's saying you still have agency here. This may explain me, but it does not get to define me. And victim mindset sometimes doesn't look like collapsing. Sometimes it looks like chronic complaining. Sometimes it looks like bitterness dressed up as wisdom. Oh, you know those people. Sometimes it looks like I shouldn't have to ask, or if people really cared, they'd know. Adults communicate. Adults decide. Adults take ownership. That's not harsh. That's freeing, because once you realize you don't have to stay in the story, you can start changing it. You are allowed to have a backstory. You're just not required to build your future around the worst chapter. So back at that dinner, the one I told you about at the start, it eventually ran out of steam mid-monologue. And one of my friends looked at me and said very quietly, "So what are you actually going to do about it?" I wanted to keep going. I had more material. I hadn't even got to the really, really good parts. But that question stopped me. And it stopped me cold because I didn't have an answer. And the fact that I didn't have an answer told me everything. I'd been so busy building the case that I hadn't once asked what came next. So that's what I'm asking you. Where in your life have you become more committed to the story than the solution? Let me say that again. Where in your life have you become more committed to the story than the solution? Where have you been rehearsing what happened instead of deciding what's next? And what is still yours to do? Sit with that. Actually sit with it. Not for 30 seconds before you open Instagram. I'm saying write it down. Write it down if you need to. One thing is still yours to do, because victim mindset says, look what happened to me. Growth mindset says, now what? That's where your power lives. So thanks for being here. I'll see you next time on the Bounce Back Better podcast. But remember what we do. We text a friend, tell them how amazing they are. And of course, the other thing we do is we share this. Remember, if you'd like a copy of 3 Ones In, the first person who comments on YouTube gets a copy. All right. I hope you had a fabulous week. I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you're excited to get out of that victim mindset. And remember, it might not be in every area of your life. You just might be sitting in sometimes in some areas. I will catch you next week. Bye for now.